Chapter 2, Classifying Life. Mr. Patterson starts off with crying about how science changes what it thinks when new evidence comes in. He also promises to show us the truth of creation and the science of baraminology. Supposedly, we're actually going to be receiving a definition of the word kind. That should be good. His next little tangent's a strange one. Apparently, humans do share many physical traits with mammals, but we're different, because we have a spirit. Yeah! But we do get a definition, sort of, kind. They're called baramin, and while the book claims that they're roughly equal to the family level, his explanation that baramin cannot interbreed seems to fit more species. However, because Mr. Patterson must know that speciations occurred, he places them at a higher level and also claims that while kinds can interbreed, animals from the same kind maybe can't either because of the effects of the curse. That does seem to be what they're going with, the curse. Mr. Patterson also seems to have no knowledge of anything on the fossil record, but according to him, we're going more in depth in Chapter 4. Okay. He presents a diagram from Kurt Wise and claims operational science supports his orchid model, even though they don't really have one yet. He also repeats his claim that animals can only change to their kind. His last paragraph, though, is gold. Oh, Roger Patterson. Ultimately, all classification schemes and theoretical relationships are based on man's interpretation of the evidence. Starting with the truth found in God's Word will lead us closer to the true interpretation of the evidence than starting with the fallible ideas of men. In other words, start with the conclusion and try to force the evidence to fit. Also, these fallible ideas of men have brought us many things that your God's Word has failed to provide, like the processes used to create a book that rejects science altogether. His first two reference articles don't really say anything he hasn't already or that's even relevant, but his third demonstrates a profound misunderstanding of an evolutionary family tree. He provides an example of human evolution from Glencoe and points out the dotted lines in the diagram, and claims that means there's not any evidence to support it because it's disputed, but that's not the case. The pathway is disputed because there's too much evidence and new fossils are arriving by the truckload. Scientists are still heavily tasked with finding out what goes where with the knowledge that we have. Now his next two articles ignore evidence and pick on Archaeoraptor, respectively. Pretty boring and petty stuff. His next source draws attention to the debate in the scientific community regarding the evolution of birds. And while there was a debate about birds regarding whether or not they evolved from the ground up from trees, birds evolved. The next reference is AIG quote mining a Scientific American article, which isn't a major scientific journal, but rather a popular science magazine. But that doesn't matter. What does matter is that Answers in Genesis claims there is absolutely no way for feathers to evolve. And, of course, they're wrong. His next source decides to attack mitochondrial Eve with the same 25 times mutation speed canard. There was a study done which has found this, but others have been unable to recreate the result, instead arriving at a date of not 6,500, but rather 150 to 200,000 years. He also suggests there exists recombination between father and mother mitochondrial DNA, but if such recombination were to exist, the mRCMA would actually be older. Regardless, it doesn't matter. Mitochondrial Eve is merely our most recent common matrilineal ancestor, and she is not the founding ancestor of the human species. Questions to consider. Question 1. Do the relationships shown in the phylogenetic tree ever change? If new evidence were to come in, yes. 2. Since using different characteristics gives different phylogenetic trees, how can you know which tree is right? I guess the one we're using is correct because it's the one supported by evidence and includes all characteristics. 3. Can any one classification scheme be called right or wrong because it's simply an interpretation of the same evidence as other classification schemes? Suppose not, but the other classification scheme would have to be supported by the evidence. The creation tree of life does not match the evidence. 4. Why do many artists draw feathers on dinosaurs when there is no evidence of actual feathers found with the fossils? There actually have been fossilized feathers, and I guess the artist just understands evolution. Come on, you're getting schooled in scientific knowledge by an artist. 5. Do scientists agree on how dinosaurs turned into birds? No, they agree it happened, but they're not quite sure how. 6. Does the fact that a majority of scientists think that dinosaurs evolved into birds make it true? What about those scientists who laugh at this idea? Well, those scientists better have the evidence to back up their claims. 7. Since different sections of mitochondrial DNA mutate at different rates, how do scientists decide which rate to use when determining evolutionary dates, calibration, and extrapolation? Is this so hard?